Hello and welcome everyone to our 32nd session of Hello Casa. My name is Michael and today I'll be talking to Pamela J. Goodwin from Plano, Dallas, Texas. Plano is a city close to Dallas and has been one of the favorite areas to live in due to its proximity to Dallas, its high living standard, fantastic education and great job opportunities. It is also right now one of those destinations people choose when they decide to leave California and to decide to move to Texas for better life quality and lifestyle and also value for money. But since I'm not from Plano myself and Pamela is, so I'll directly give the word to Pamela. And Pamela, welcome to the show. And why don't you introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, thank you so much. Here from Plano, Texas, that was recently voted one of the happiest. It was voted #1 happiest city. And so Plano's a great city. We're about 20 miles north of downtown Dallas, so about 30 minutes, but it's always been rated one of the top cities in the entire country for one of the safest, great place to do real estate. And as you mentioned in your opening, a lot of people are moving here from California because there's a lot of advantages here.
Great. You yourself, you're from Plano, and you also are obviously a real estate broker. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey towards real estate, and then we are later going to move a little bit to Plano and go a little bit deeper on that topic.
Sure. Well, after graduating, I actually have a degree in interior design, and I always wanted to do commercial design and specifically hotel design. And I did that for about a year. I graduated from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, which were the Cornhuskers. Mm-hmm. And I took that interior design degree. And for the first half of my career, I worked for large shopping center development companies. I lived in Omaha, then relocated to Baltimore, Maryland to work on a large expansion project, 4 levels, adding large department stores. Then I moved to Southern California, Los Angeles, and worked on a variety of shopping centers and kind of dabbled in the entertainment business, working for a couple casting directors on TV shows. So that taught me a lot about rejection, which was interesting. And then 23 years ago, a company from Los Angeles who bought a large shopping center. It was hit by the 1994 Northridge earthquake, and that company moved me to Dallas to oversee all of their 7 shopping centers, and we've been here ever since. So it's been a great place for real estate. My boss thought, if you don't like it in a few months, you can move back to Southern California. We've been here ever since, married and 2 sons, 19 and almost 18 years. So it's been a great place to do business and a great place to raise a family.
Wow, that's great. From interior and designer and also from Nebraska via Los Angeles, TV host, and then ending up in Plano. A very lucky shot, I assume, that you now have the privilege to live in Plano. Tell us a little bit about the gig as a TV producer, and also I assume like you were directly all in concerning Hollywood and a lot of bling bling over there. How can I imagine this lifestyle over there?
In Los Angeles or in Dallas?
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was a really great place to live. When I first moved out there, I was single and just loved being by the beach, and it was just a really diverse place to live. So was able to meet a lot of people. And even now living in Dallas, it's become, with a lot of people moving from California now to Dallas, is definitely making it a lot more diverse city here. And so that's exciting for us. And a lot of large corporations moving here too recently. So Dallas is just booming, and traffic to me seems almost, when they complain about the traffic in Los Angeles, we have it here now in Dallas too. So
yeah, that's interesting because in fact you really, I think, were at the beginning of the entire movement from California to Texas, when it like more or less like started. How can you describe us a little bit the difference between like 20 years ago and now Dallas itself, and also maybe Plano?
All right. So when we first moved to Plano, there's one section where it was at the Tollway, which doesn't mean too much to you, but Tollway and Parker, and then nothing north of that. It was pretty much fields. And if you can see what's built there now, huge shopping centers, office buildings, residential homes. I mean, just it seemed like it happened overnight, the massive amount of growth all to the north of us, almost going to the Oklahoma border. So it's really, really changed. But, Plano, being in this area has just always been a really, really good place for growth. The nice thing is working with the city of Plano, they really promote businesses to be here. So they travel all over the world to be here. We recently, Toyota moved here from Southern California and opened up their headquarters here that brought in more than 3,000, high executive people.
That's interesting. I also saw that not only Toyota, but different companies like Walgreens, I think, also moved to Plano, and also Dallas itself. What is in fact? I mean, most probably it's Texas, but are there other interesting things or important things the mayor and also the state itself is doing differently to California, which triggers this movement and also these benefits in order to set up the company in Texas?
The biggest benefits is just that the housing prices are drastically what you get here in Dallas Plano area. You can get a beautiful brand new home for $350,000, 4-bedroom, 3,000 plus square foot house, brand new in a great area. But the top things are really, we have top education for our elementary and schools as a top advantage. We have no state income tax. We're one of the few, there may be 7 or 8 states out of the United States that have no income tax. And so everything is just priced a lot lower, from gas to groceries to housing to safe communities. We have everything here except for mountains or a beach, a decent beach. We have it on the Houston side, but I mean, we have so much offered here. And we have Dallas Fort Worth, which is our central hub. American Airlines is based here.
Yeah.
So you can fly direct anywhere in the world from Dallas. I can go, which when I do fly over to Europe, to your part of the world, I fly, direct on Lufthansa to Dallas, right to Germany. So we can fly anywhere, and it's just anywhere in the States too. There's so many advantages here. And besides that, the people, everybody always comments how nice the people are. It's really nice.
It's what you mentioned also about the access. I think even domestic flights are, it's much more accessible if you're a consultant or you have to travel a lot for business trips. I think you're much better located than on the West Coast, because I guess that you have a flight duration of maybe 2.5 hours at the most within the US. While if you live in San Francisco or Los Angeles, you might end up, how long does it take? 4 hours, 4.5 hours to the East Coast, so you are definitely a little bit far off. And also time zone wise, if you have clients from Europe, you might definitely have already gained. I think it's 2 hours the difference to the Pacific Standard Time. So those most probably are also reasons why companies are settling over there.
Yeah, it's an advantage. And the Goodwin commercial, I've had my company now since 2003, or 2006, excuse me, and going on, just celebrated 13 years in business. And even when we had the down recession in 08 and 09, Texas was pretty much number one, the strongest state that still, survived well after that. So, and it's the primary thing that Texas I'm, like they say, I got here as fast as I could, kind of a saying, but they really do make business so much easier to do. When you're developing property, working with the cities, I've seen what happens not California, but it can take years, or in Florida. Some of those projects really, really take a long time with so much regulation. And in Texas, it's open, and that's why so many businesses are coming here and people are moving here, which is great for me because those people all need to shop and they all need to eat. And since our company specializes in retail, real estate, it's just been a great place.
Yeah. It sounds like Texas figured out the important elements for society to blossom, like strong education, very high level of security, good ease of doing, like high ease of doing business. You don't need much more, like also obviously like low corporate tax rate. So this is like a virtuous cycle you're starting, and then it just adds up, and it's getting better and better and better. And you might right now like see the fruits out of these regulations and the efforts which have been taken throughout the last decades, I assume. Tell us a little bit about your expertise and also obviously your services. You're focused mainly on commercial real estate, but not only in Plano, through like across entire Texas. Give us a little bit about an overview what you're dedicating yourself to.
Right. So Goodwin Commercial is 100% commercial real estate. And after working for one of the largest restaurant companies in the world, Brinker International, where I had the opportunity to learn how to develop more than 50 chilies from the ground up, gave me, a wealth of information. So we specialize in developing single tenant net lease properties, which means we will buy 5 acres and we'll lease it back to tenants like Walgreens, Chase, McDonald's type tenants. We also do redevelopment. And then another sector of our business is brokerage, which we primarily represent, people that are investing in commercial real estate, doing a 1031 exchange. For example, I had a client who recently he had a couple $1 million. He had just sold his business and wanted to invest in real estate. So what sets us apart is because of my development and background, I suggested to him 4 acres of land and did a pro forma for him showing, if you built a small retail center, leased it out to McDonald's, leased it out to a Chase Bank, did a quick site plan on that, showed him the type of return, the multi-millions of dollars that getting tenants like that, what type of return he would be able to get. So even while we had it under contract, I knew it was prime property for him. And we even had an offer at $500,000 more for him. So he was happy about that. He ended up closing on the project. So wow. We also do that. And then the third thing is we also do consulting work. So if you happen to have a piece of land and you have no idea what to do with it, or you own an office building and you want to know the most profit you can get from that, we recently helped a lady who owned 2 acres who wanted to develop senior living. So she hired myself as a consultant, and we were able to get her a recent $3.3 million small business SBA loan, small business loan for her to develop. And I helped her, do all of the due diligence and hiring the architect and civil engineer, and then showed her at the very end result, which everybody always wants to know how much money they're going to make at the end. And so, my expertise is really helping. I love helping small business owners also lease space, or if they've been in a lease for a long time, walking them through the entire process. We're turnkey, taking the time to show them the advantages of owning commercial real estate versus leasing and being your own landlord.
Yeah. Super interesting concerning, I just thought about various questions while you were talking. First question is, who are those clients who have that much money, who are able to buy, you were talking about 5 acres and purchase those. Are those institutional buyers, or are those also even sometimes private buyers?
I've only worked with the private investor. Mm-hmm. So that was a particular person who had sold his business and had, some profit return on that, and wanted to do something instead of worried about the stock market going on, sure, of all that, because a great thing that if you buy $1 million of real estate, if you buy, you need 20% down. So you need $200,000 down. But if you buy $1 million of stocks, typically you need $1 million. So
That's true.
in
That's
real
true. You
estate,
can
though,
leverage it. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I didn't think about that, obviously. You knew.
yeah. And so showing him how, that was the first time he had purchased, a large amount in real estate. I mean, he was a sophisticated business owner, obviously, but not in the commercial real estate world. So showing him what some of these tenants pay, because there's a big difference if you do a Dollar General deal or if you do a McDonald's deal.
Yeah.
On that same piece of property, you'll double your money, if you do a McDonald's deal versus, the Dollar General type tenant. And it all comes down to the tenant credit and a lot of their other variables.
I mean, this is like, now that you say that, it sounds quite accessible. It is not like that unaccessible when you're talking about like 200K. I mean, obviously, like it's a lot of money, but having that one and then calculating the ROI based on 200K and not on the 1 million, obviously comparing that to the stock market, you will most probably be much better off, as you say, once you have like a tenant like McDonald's or JC Penney or Walgreens or whoever it might be. Obviously, I don't know like who are the best clients there, but you might know that. You said the down payment for in Texas is 20% at least, or does that depend on the credit score of each investor?
It does vary, but if you're getting a conventional loan from one of our banks, it typically is 20%. Some on a land deal may require 30% or a little bit higher. But sometimes if you have a tenant, if you tell them, we have a Walgreens, here's their lease, they'll take that down as the equity too and lower the amount that you have to pay down. For example, the lady who had the 2 acres, planning on developing the senior living, what she bought it for, and then we were able to the bank required her to do an appraisal. It came in so much higher in such a short amount of time that the bank used that equity that she had in her land to be able to take out that higher amount, and she did not have to put any additional money down into that.
That's amazing.
And so that's what I like to really, I'm teaching classes now and hosting a TV show just to really help people understand how to get into commercial real estate, because there's not too many places where you can learn how to do it. But I do I do want to make it accessible to people and, being able to buy it. It just takes someone kind of explaining it to you. But it's just, there's so many tax benefits and tax deductions and
yeah,
I just
mean,
have
if you don't mind, because I'm very ignorant concerning all this topic, and maybe I'm asking some stupid questions now for you, but for me it is very still very challenging to wrap my head around how exactly how exactly does it work, and how can I break down the steps you conduct in order to allow me to buy real estate, like to buy the acres and then also rent it out to a Walgreens. Does it mean that you are also, obviously, I think it's super challenging to do the market research, you do the due diligence, you say, okay, what is possible there? You have most probably also direct access to the network, to the retail stores, and then the paperwork with the retail stores. How does that work? Can you break down a little bit the steps so that I get more or less like a clue of what I would be facing?
Right. So, and I actually did put together an audio course step by step to walk you through, but just because it is a process, and I kind of always suggest that people need to team up. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but it would be like if you're trying to fly a plane, you're not going to do it by yourself. I mean, you see they go step by step, and that's the same thing with real estate, that you really want to team up with someone who's done it before. So you can either provide the sweat equity, which means, you call me and you say, hey, Pam, I always tell people to work in their community because they know exactly what's missing, what type of restaurant, retail, medical, what's missing in there. And then teaming up with somebody. But for example, a lot of times people don't even know how to get a hold of the McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, if you go to their websites, almost all of the tenants are, the national tenants, or even some of the, I don't know, mom and pop type tenants,
Mm-hmm.
franchisees, but typically at the bottom of their website. So for example, you can Google, just find McDonald's website, go to the bottom of the page to the left, it'll say real estate, click on that. They have an entire site plan showing you exactly how many they plan on opening, exactly what they're looking for, and who to contact. Because so many of these public companies are telling their shareholders that they have to open up X amount of stores.
Mm-hmm.
So just always realize, they're all looking for sites. They're all competing, the Starbucks, the Chick-fil-A, the McDonald's, a lot of those tenants, they want the prime locations. But it is a process. And from the ground up, it's not fast, it's not easy. So realistic, even when we were doing our Chili's deals, the quickest we could get them open, or even myself as a developer, it will take from 9 months, and this is raw land, and
Mm-hmm.
up to get open.
And they have normally, or most probably, like some, not restrictions, but some requirements saying, okay, we please arrange the land as per XYZ. We need obviously a proper street. We need I don't know what. Maybe sometimes you have like a land which doesn't have the infrastructure which they require. So this would imply that the owner of the land would first need to make sure that all those requirements are in place, or you don't even buy the place, buy the acre in the first place.
Right. So that's all negotiable. So for example, Starbucks, they always like to go on the side of the street, the going to work side.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the going to work, coming back from work side, they're not going to like that piece of property. They'll go across the street going to work side. But a lot of them have requirements, like you mentioned, that they have to have at least 25,000 cars going in front of their space per day. They all have traffic count requirements. They all have demographic requirements. And then as far as the developer, that's all negotiable as far as how you turn over the property to them. Some of them will require all those utilities within 5 feet of the building. Some of them will require it to the property line. And they have a lot of brochures and information. For example, next week, I'm not attending it, but next week in Las Vegas is our national conference, and people come from around the world. It's the retail conference, and that's where you'll find all of the shopping center developers. So anything that's retail related, from hotels, big shopping centers, all the retail tenants, they all have their booths, and that's the place to go meet everybody. And that happens once a year in May.
Yeah. I mean, I think the way I understand it is that you chose the most challenging sector of real estate, which a real estate agent can choose, because you don't even have only to deal with acquiring the deals, like getting someone who wants to sell and someone who wants to buy. You also have to really have a strong network with the municipality, I assume, because you need to have you have to have the road count. I wouldn't even know where to get all the information from, or maybe you have to get like a license or a permit in order to do some constructions on public spaces. And then you have to have a very strong network with all the retail companies. I think it's very challenging. It's very complex. Or am I wrong? I don't know.
I know it's funny that you say that, because I'm always amazed, and I've been in it for about more than 30 years now, but I'm always amazed of if people really knew how long that project took and the pure hell that you hate to say that, but what they had to go through to get something opened. a lot of times it amazes me that anything sometimes gets done. And I'm a very positive person, but there's a lot of steps. So that's why developing property is the most risky, but it's the most rewarding. And out of all of real estate, it's the most profitable.
And then you're driving across Texas and say, okay, this is what I helped to create, this one and this one. I think this is also one of the most rewarding elements when you really see, okay, I have been part of the development of this city and of this community, isn't it?
Oh, and that if somebody asks me what my why is,
Yeah,
that's definitely what it is. And even learning from the Chili's restaurant, when we would bring them to a community that only had a couple fast food and 10,000 people in their city, they would roll out the red carpet because you knew that their family community they were going to have a place of gathering. And so that's definitely the highlight. I worked on a project where we did Walgreens, Chase, and McDonald's, and I went out there about a month ago and I sat across the street at the Sonic and go, look, I envision that's exactly what would go there, tearing down a 1950 motel that needed to go, cleaning up the city, and now having 3 brand new locations for the people to shop and eat. It is very rewarding.
I guess so. And now imagine you are not doing that in Texas, but in a state where you have like very, very bad regulations, and the public institutions are not really helping. You have to wait and wait and wait. I think that can be very frustrating. So at least you're in Texas where you know that things are getting done.
Yeah, definitely. It's getting done, and the easier the cities make it, it's exciting to see a lot of cranes happening and a lot more growth going on.
Can you, as for me both as a foreigner, but also as someone maybe who lives in a different state and would like to know like the particularities about buying process in Texas, can you walk us a little bit about like normal, like if I want to buy land in Texas, what would be the 5 steps or the 10 steps I have to go through? Maybe you can lay them out like very, very shallowly.
Well, the 5 steps, we'll see if we can come up with 5, but I know the number 1 is to find the right broker is key when buying land, and that they know what they're doing. You don't want somebody who leases out shopping center to sell you land, because land can be one of the trickiest things. It may be, let's just say $200,000 for the land, but then you don't know, there's all kinds of things that you have to know to go on with it. So you'd have to hire the right broker, and then to engage in a civil engineer that can really help you look at the survey, know where all the wet and dry utilities are, the topo to see the grade elevation. So hiring the right civil engineer. The next step is always meeting with the city, the local economic development director, to meet with them. Part of the city also is the planning department, to walk through exactly to make sure it's zoned correctly. Meeting with them are the key. And then having an architect or your civil can lay out a site plan to start doing a pro forma, which means analyzing all your soft, hard costs, land costs. So what can be built on that land to give you the most profit. Or if you're taking an existing building, knowing what can go in there. But really, the key first person I always recommend is hiring the best broker with that expertise.
And then obviously, and the civil engineer does more or less like the appraisal in technical terms, I assume. And then you're making sure that everything's legal, and everything you want to construct is also even possible, kind of, I assume.
Right. Throwing in there also, really, that's a good point. But you definitely want to have a really good real estate attorney to make sure when you do go under contract, all the legal, are addressed on it.
Yeah.
So,
and
having I have about 6 key consultants that I know exactly who to go to when I'm looking for, acquiring property myself for a building,
Okay.
and to make sure you're completely protected.
Okay. And then once everything is good, I say, okay, I want to buy it. Or to which institution do I go? Maybe, most of the American people know that, but me being German, I'm not really aware of the process in the US. So that might be interesting for me as well. Like, do I go to the local municipality, to the land registry? How does that work?
As far as when you're ready to purchase it.
Yeah.
So here in the States, it all goes through a title company.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you have your purchase contract executed, you're the buyer, you have it executed with a seller,
Mm-hmm.
then it goes into escrow.
Mm-hmm.
You put a certain amount of money down on the property.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's in escrow, title is kicked off, and that kind of kicks the ball rolling. And depending on if you have 30 days or 90 days to do your due diligence,
Okay.
Before you buy the property. And then during that time, you'll either paying cash for it or getting a conventional loan, or you've teamed up with friends and family, to use private money to be
Okay.
able to, once you do all your due diligence, have another 30 days before you close on it, with the title company handles all the paperwork for that.
Okay, that's cool. So the title company takes care of everything, and I don't have to go to 15 different institutions and getting stamps from everyone, and then okay, got it. Interesting.
Yeah. They take care of all that.
Okay.
Most of it, really between your real estate attorney and your title company,
Yeah.
will handle all the correct documents that's needed to acquire the property,
Okay.
and the deed and all that.
Is there a certain tax rate which is different on land, which is no construction, than on normal property or residential real estate? What for a tax rate can I expect during closure, during the purchasing, and is there also a recurring one on a yearly basis, maybe on the assets? I don't know if there's something like that.
So that the taxes, it'll be based off of, if you're just buying raw land, the property taxes are going to be based off of just that amount.
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically around here in the 2.5%, 3%. Every city is completely different on what they charge for their property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be the pro rata share. So the seller, the title company, will determine what that pro rata share is depending on which month you buy it in.
Mm-hmm.
So if they've already paid a portion of it, you close in August, then you have the remaining 3 months to pay the property taxes. The one where my buyers, they actually had an agricultural exempt on it. They were growing, I think, wheat or hay on it or something, so
Mm-hmm.
that they had a substantial amount of back taxes on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was close to an extra $200,000. So that's why doing your due diligence. And in this case, the seller was making the buyer pay all those back taxes. That was on top of the additional sales price of the property. But we knew all that up front.
Okay.
So
Okay. No, because exactly. So if you don't do the due diligence, you're ending up like having a huge surprise and saying, okay, this is not what I expected, and then you have like a lot of taxes which is still owing. Okay, so let's say around between 2 and 3%, but plus minus, let's say. Okay, and then the entire processing costs. Let's say we're having the agent, we're having the title company, we're having the civil engineer, more or less on a percentage or on in absolute terms. What can I expect when I go for the purchase in total?
That's kind of all over the board, and it's kind of really hard to calculate a number.
Yeah.
It's more on a bit. Title company is
it's
like
more
a 1% fee.
Okay.
On all that, but a lot of you'll have soils report, you'll have a survey. All of those kind of vary. Just depends. Sometimes you'll have an existing survey that just needs to be modified, and so
it's case by case. Okay.
It's hard to really throw out a number for that. on
No,
your
that's
closing
fine.
cost.
That's fine. That's totally understandable. Okay, great, interesting. Um, can you give me a little bit of an idea of your TV hosting activities? Walk us through a little bit what you're doing, what you're dedicating yourself to. You also mentioned that you're having this course, this audio course. Tell us a little about those services and those things you're doing.
Sure. Well, there's so many people in the United States that most people, when they think of getting into real estate, they people tell them to start in residential real estate, not in commercial. So had this great opportunity come to me a couple months ago. It's on Propelio TV,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find him on Facebook and YouTube. PROP I have to spell that Propelio TV. And my show is all on commercial real estate. I'm currently mentoring a young person who is currently can you hear my lawnmower guy? She's currently in residential real estate, so I'm mentoring her how to get into commercial real estate. But it airs every Tuesday live on Facebook at 3 p.m. Central Time in the States. And we've had some excellent shows on going through the whole process of exactly how to, work exactly what you were talking about. How do I find a retail tenant? What events do I go to? If I want to buy a condo, what do I need to look for? And so I'm mentoring on that. And it's a 1 hour plus show, and people on Facebook are able to ask questions. And we've had a great response on it so far.
That's amazing, and most probably a lot of potential real estate agent, but also maybe already real estate agents who are well conducting the profession, then start to realize, okay, it takes some while until I do my first closure, so I need to have some runway. I need to have some savings maybe for the first 18, maybe even 24 months, because during the first month, it will take some time until I close the first deal, or I start also directly with the consulting services as a side, so that I already have some recurring cash flow. Isn't that a lot of times when new people say, okay, I wanted to start my business in real estate, they think, okay, within the first 3 months I will already sell like three residential properties or the first commercial real estate, and then they're realizing, okay, that's actually not the reality.
Right. Some projects can happen really quickly. A lot of people in residential, their client will own a restaurant, for example. I'll get those, and they want to find a second location. Mm-hmm. And so, that way they can quickly get into commercial real estate and find a location, get a lease executed in, shortest time typically is about 2 months, and it can drag on even longer. But the thing in commercial real estate, I always say you have to have patience and you have to be persistent, and it's definitely will be a payoff though if you just stick with it. So it's when people are used to, it's worth it. So
great. And that's a lot of people, I think they just I assume that a lot of people don't have the persistence and the perseverance to really stick to it, like over a couple of months or even years, until they really see the benefits and the return. Since you are acting and very, very executing your profession across the entire Texas, give us your point of view and your thoughts about the developments and tendencies and trends in Texas. Maybe not necessarily only, maybe Dallas is obviously not the only city which is like super attractive right now. Maybe there are other upcoming cities where you would say, okay, this is definitely a very nice place right now to live. A lot of people are moving there. Are there any insights you could share with us?
Well, yeah, we're based here. We're in North Texas, so pretty far north, and everything is still continuing to grow farther up north, almost to the Oklahoma border.
Mm-hmm.
And we do other projects throughout. But I'm finding one of the biggest trends right now, and I've been doing a lot of research for a client of mine who actually bought a 15,000 square foot vacant building. But it seems like the co-working spaces have really, really taken off here and are opening up in a lot of office buildings, and they're very, very profitable. So that seems to be a really, really big trend here with their having events, having the co-working rented by the day, and it's really booming here for a lot of companies that, you know, they don't want to set up an office, but they'll go into the Weworks and some of those locations and set up their company right there.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. It's interesting that even companies are preferring the Weworks and those places, and not only like, you know, I think it was like originally thought for freelancers to use those places in order to have like a community lifestyle and the feel of being at home or having a good community during work. Sorry. What do you think is the reason that companies are choosing the Weworks nowadays instead of having their dedicated and exclusive office spaces? Do you think it's also because they're risk averse and don't know, and maybe there are a lot of startups saying, okay, I don't know how long we will be able to sustain, or is it also the Ciscos of the world and the Toyotas of the world?
I think it's all of exactly what you mentioned. And WeWorks tagline it's something like, you know, you don't have to have we don't want to have you on a leash instead of a lease. And so many of those office will require a 5-year or a 10-year lease. And exactly what you said, they may be a startup and they may not be in business 3, 5, 10 years. So to put them on a long-term lease and then have a personal guarantee to be responsible. And so many of the younger millennial workers, they want the flexibility. They want to be able to sit in an open area and have coffee, or later that afternoon have a beer. You know, they're always having events going on. So they're really gearing towards that market of flexibility and making it fun and, you know, not being held up to being in a space for a long time. And a lot of them, they've just done some really great interiors to make it a fun place to work. They're even, you know, changing. I just went to one last week, and they're even having an artist come in and change the artwork and change the furniture around just so that nobody gets kind of tired and sick of the same place day after day. They're making it really fun. They're really having to change it out because I think everybody's attention span these days are really short, and everybody wants to change and gets bored very quickly these days compared to 20 years ago.
No, I mean, it's also, as an employer, I think it's a way to offer the younger generations the Google lifestyle or work style without really needing to bother about it. Because imagine you would need then to hire an architect, to hire maybe a chief people officer to know exactly like what are people or what are young or anyone nowadays, how do they want to work, and why not just, you know, give it to WeWork, they will take care of it. So it's like kind of like a vertical disintegration and giving them the expertise and say, okay, you know how to do it, you know the trends, you take care of everything, and we're just gonna do, I don't know, we are in the automotive industry and we are just taking care of our core business. So it actually makes sense.
And the nice thing is, like a WeWork, if you happen to be based in Dallas, you can go to the one in New York City or Los Angeles, or go around the world and go in a WeWork and be able to have access anywhere instead of setting up office, in the local Starbucks and give you some privacy and give you a conference room and give you a place to go to. That's a big advantage for a lot of people. Absolutely. And so if you're looking to get into commercial real estate, go find a older building. We have a design district that are taking these old industrial buildings and converting them. That's where I was at last week,
Yeah.
converting them into a co-working space, and they have all that great brick and all that stuff. It's a great business to get into, and studying the pro formas on that, the profitability is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whose market are they entering? So, which one are the incumbents who now might get harmed or might lose some business via WeWork existing? Or because I see like the landowner, the construction, like the construction companies, then the office spaces, but I don't see anyone within who they might be squeezing down or their margins squeezing down. Who is now, like, let's say, losing in this game?
It's really hard to tell. If I had to guess, I would have to say it's some of the larger office developers, but they're not even really losing because they're changing, you know, one to two to, I've seen an office building in downtown Dallas, 7 floors of a co-working space. So
Yeah.
I'm not really, I can't even think of anybody that it's really
No, because
impacting to make that
yeah,
change.
because they can just change the architecture or the interior design, and I don't know, like removing the indoor walls, and that's it. So I was just wondering about it. So what about aside the commercial real estate trends, also societal trends? So good places, for example, in northern Texas for families to move right now, very trendy. The new, I don't know, maybe there's a nice neighborhood also within Dallas where people really right now mingle and start flocking in. Is there anything we should know about which is very, very trendy right now?
Let's see, I'm trying to think of, well, here in North Texas, it gets pretty hot in the summertime. So we have, some great enclosed malls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's still just booming as far as new restaurant concepts coming here that we've never had before
Mm-hmm.
to North Texas, for example, coming, from California, some of the restaurants and I think it's still fairly typical. We're North Texas. We're definitely a sports town with the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Mavericks and the Dallas Stars and the Texas Rangers. So we have, the primary professional sports. So sports is really, really big in Texas, all the way from, they start at 3 years old all the way, through high school, and then college is really, really big here, the sports. So a lot of that is all geared towards building some of the biggest football arenas for the high school. Some of those arenas are bigger than most college. And so everything, as they say, is bigger in Texas, and it's definitely true.
Yeah, me being German and loving basketball, so I'm obviously a Dallas Mavericks fan
No,
with the Dirk
good.
Nowitzki playing for the Mavs. You already, sorry, you also have some listings you can describe us right now on your portfolio. Why don't you illustrate one or two of your interesting projects right now?
Sure. Well, we do typically more represent the buyer than a lot of listings, but I do have one, a really good location, and it's about 3 hours south of Dallas in a small town called Copperas Cove, Texas. We have 2 acres there. We actually had more property, but we sold the adjacent property next door to Discount Tires. And so that's 2 acres that we are looking for a restaurant or a fast food user. And the nice thing about that, it's right next to, probably, I think the next biggest city is Killeen, that has one of the largest Army bases in our country.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people live in this Copperas Cove. There's I think there's 60,000 cars that pass the site, which is really key on that property. So it's perfect. I'm looking for a restaurant or possibly building, some type of medical office building on that. But that's a really good price and a good property that I have. I have another one that's off market, a national tenant. The client is trying to sell that, and that's kind of in the 1.7 million range. So if you're in a 1031 exchange, it's with a national tenant. So I just have 2 of those listings right now.
Perfect. Good. And always remembering the 20% down payment. That's important to know when talking about the prices. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience and you would like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, if you're out of the country and you want to buy property in the United States, to definitely reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn under Pamela J. Goodwin and post all the time on that. Find me on social media or my website at pamgoodwin.com. But my biggest thing I'm always trying to tell people is do not be intimidated by buying commercial real estate. Even if you don't have the 20% down, there's so many ways of creative financing in different ways that you may have equity from having it in your current homestead, or you may own other residential properties that you can use that equity down. I mean, my number one thing is don't ever let you not buy commercial real estate because you don't have the money. Because to me, that's always the easiest part of the deal. If you have a good deal, money will come find you. That's the easiest part. So, if you can have a goal to buy at least one piece of commercial real estate, if you want to build wealth in real estate, or just wealth, or have a different source of cash flow income, definitely consider real estate.
One last question, what is more or less the ROI can you give any range of ROI, of annual ROI an investor can expect on not necessarily on the down payment, but on the overall price?
Well, we typically more, talk in terms of cap rates on what that return will be. And I have some investors that want to buy at a 10% cap rate to get 10% on their money. Some will only, if they're paying cash, they're happy to get 4% return on their money.
Yeah.
But I would say the average investor typically wants to make, that 7 to 10% on their money in real estate. And you can make a lot more than that. But that's kind of just a general.
And that's net. That's after all the deductions, let's say overhead, administration and stuff. But let's say between 7 and 15 is definitely possible. Also, most probably in terms on how aggressive you want to go, because it obviously always correlates with the risk, I assume.
Right, definitely. And then if you're developing property, it's a lot higher than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's humongous, especially right now, like considering the low interest rates. Where else do you get like 10 to 15% on annual ROI?
Right, because our bank loans today, they've been talking about, everybody usually asks me what I think about the rise of interest rates, and for a long time they've kind of remained steady at that 5%, even lower. And so that's a bargain to buy real estate on those terms at that price. It's really good.
Absolutely, yeah.
They haven't increased at all. A lot of times the media will have fear that interest rate is going up. That's the same thing I wanted to say about, they always think the retail world, everything's going online and all the online sales for retail, and retail's closing up stores left and right. But it's still only typically, I go to the reports I hear, the online sales still are only at 8%. So 92% of sales are still brick and mortar locations, and you'll see a lot of online stores. So a lot of times I just shut off that media of what's really happening. If you drive around, you're like, okay, so what, that one store closed, they were terrible anyways, and they make a big deal out of it, like the whole world's closing. I saw a Party City, I don't know if you're familiar with that tenant, like a party store, they're pretty big around here, but they're closing 45 stores because they said they couldn't get enough helium. They couldn't buy enough helium.
I heard that story, yeah.
And so it's interesting of why a business will close, but as long as you can't, I mean, people still want to go engage and be out with people eating. I mean, the restaurants here, I don't know about where, I know you're in a beautiful place, but you can be here and have a 30-40 minute wait to go at a restaurant.
No, absolutely. I mean, what you say is very, very interesting because today even I wrote or I read a very interesting article about the like direct to consumer trend. Like, everything is going online, all the intermediaries are being cut off. And the study showed that yes, they start online, they go directly to the consumer. Harris is one example, or the Dollar Shaves Club, or Casper, and then once they grow, they go retail, they go brick and mortar, and then suddenly 80% of all their sales is being conducted offline. So you see, like, even those new entrants are then converting to retail. So and also on the other hand, I mean, if you don't know, or like if you say it's not getting close, so then we have directly the expert on the floor and on the ground. Like, it's very interesting when you like then listening to the radio and say, okay, so you guys tell me the truth. I can tell you much better because I'm directly on at the forefront.
Yeah, people still, I know for example, still have to go feel it, touch it, look it, hold it, and all that, versus I still buy online too, stuff that, not that important, but
yeah,
it's definitely changing, and you have to, like you mentioned, follow what the trends are and be on top of it. But the retailers with social media are really having to step up their game compared to before. All they do is open the doors and hope people would come to their store. Now they're really having to step it up and be really innovative to stay in business, which I completely love. It's kind of up their game a lot on a lot of them, or some of them are trying out pop-up stores, in locations. So a lot of really neat things are happening in our retail business.
What about the pop-up stores? You are really assisting them to also enter the market and also expand the market, or expand their business. What are let's say, the challenges and also maybe the fears they are facing, where you feel like, okay, I really need to guide them through, and I really need to, let's say, lower their fear, because it might be a little bit too overwhelming for them. What is the process and the relationship you are creating with them?
Well, I personally haven't done any pop-up stores myself, but I just saw, I think it was the Tiffany's breakfast place was opening up in Beverly Hills for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see how they do. I have a good friend that she helps several pop-up stores that will try the Dallas market out for 3 months to see what type of interest they get. And so I just find it really interesting. There's one company that has created throughout the world that you can go rent a space for a day,
mm-hmm.
or, a variety of times, instead of just having that space sit vacant. Because, instead of thinking you have to sign a 3 or 5 year lease, mm-hmm. they'll just let you try it out. But I think that's really fun. We have this candy company
mm-hmm.
That just opened up a pop store. And it's a great place. A lot of people are taking their Instagram photos down there. And it's been a huge hit. And so I think it's just a great business to get into.
Absolutely. And concerning the normal brick and mortar stores, what is your process there with the owners? Because I assume that a lot of them only have like one store, or is that what you're dealing with? Most of them are also already like kind of a chain of different retail stores.
I work with both.
Mm-hmm.
I work with national tenants that have, it's definitely a lot easier sell when you're working with a national tenant, because a lot of those landlords want that tenant but then some of the other stores like a unique restaurant or one of a kind in their retail center too. So I'll work both. I just really have to screen the tenant to make sure that they know exactly upfront what they're signing, if they're willing to do the personal guarantee, how much it's going to cost with all of the rents and triple nets, and really walking them through that. So I work with both. I mean, I like to help both. I just last year, I think it was last year, might have even been the year before, but I was helping a young lady, 18, decided not to go to college and open up her first, she's a third degree black belt, to open up her first taekwondo store.
Wow.
And so that was really fun to find her a great location. She had done a business plan. She helped negotiate the whole lease with her parents, but they really had her do everything. And the landlord approved her, going in. So that was a lot of fun. And she's doing great in that location. I love to hear success stories like that.
Yes, exactly. It's great to see like also exactly those small success stories. And yes, the corporations, obviously, they're good. But it's also good to have like the local support and have like a diverse community with the Taekwondo studio. That's amazing.
Yes, and that's fun.
Any final thoughts and final words you would like to share?
No, I mean, yeah, people from around the world are buying land in Texas, but there's still plenty to go around. So if you ever have any interest in buying some or want to bring your concept here, just give me a call. I can help you through the process. Or if you want to invest in commercial real estate, primarily in Texas, because I am a Texas broker, and know where hopefully most of the profitable. I have several tenants. The reason they come to me is with my restaurant background. Have a couple tenants recently that it's now their number one location, just knowing the market way ahead of time, who's coming, to find those locations for them. So I'd love to help work with people that are interested in commercial real estate here in the Texas market.
Perfect. Pamela, thank you so much for your insights, for everything you were talking about, for also giving me a quick introduction to the Texas real estate market. I definitely need to go and come to Plano. Sounds and looks like an awesome destination to spend some time. I really thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you, and we talk soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.